Hello everyone and welcome to my coloring corner. Today is a Collection Mania Monday, and today in the collection is our much beloved Prisma Premier colored pencils. Everyone, mostly everyone, really enjoys using these pencils. I am slowly learning how to use these pencils. They're not one of my favorites. However, as you can see, some of them are very, very short. And the reason why some of them are very, very short is Prisma has a problem with breakage. Some break really, really easily, and some do not. So I have had a lot of breakage with this set, and a lot of problems with this set with breakage. However, I think it's more to do with the type of sharpener that I was using. I was using the Prisma sharpener and I was breaking tips all day long. I could probably end up with a nub if I continued to use that sharpener. Once I switched over to my crank sharpeners, like I have the Deli, which works really well for the Prismas. I have the Dull 133, which works really well for the Prismas. And I have this little guy here, which also works really well for the Prismas. So I have found that I can sharpen them. Once I was able to sharpen them, I was able to color with them. And I have currently been working all week on a picture, well, for several weeks, on a picture that I started on Tips and Tricks Tuesday a little while ago, and I have finished it, as you've probably already seen. But this is all done with Prismas except for the hair. The hair is done with other colored pencils, but the rest of the picture is done with Prismas except for the background. The background is ink, but anything colored. So her kimono, her skin, her eyes, all of her little embellishments, except for these ones here that are done with stickles. But pretty much everything that is colored is done with Prismas. So I have been able to use them quite well. They do color very, very nicely once you can get them sharpened. They do come, like I have a couple in here that I haven't even used, like this one here, which is henna. And they do come pre-sharpened with this little tiny, tiny sharpen, um, which is gone for me in like 3 seconds. That's why I sharpen to a longer point so that, I don't use up that sharpening um, tip as quickly, sharpened tip as quickly. So let's take a look at the swatch chart. I did swatch these on Carolyn Spear's Prismacolor 150 swatch, and they do pretty good. It has the creams into the yellows, into some really light creamy yellows, almost a peachy yellow, and then into some of the darker yellows, into your oranges, and into your reds, into your peach colors, your skin tone, light skin tone colors, into some pinks, into your pink purples, and then into your darker purples down here, and then into your blues. And it has a lot of blue. Um, the only other colored pencil set that I've seen of this size that has the same amount of blues would be the 200 Obos, Fuyi, whichever, but that's 200 pencils and they have close to the same amount of blues. And then of course we go into our aquatic colors, and I must say that Prisma is one of the best for aquatic colors. Um, they have a really good range of aquatic colors, like light aqua, parrot green, aquamarine, cobalt turquoise, peacock green, gray green light, caledon, jade, all of those all together make a really, really good um, selection of aquatic colors. And then we get into our greens, which of course caledon and jade green and gray green would be useful everywhere. I love having that gray green color. Pale sage is another really, really good one to use for your gray greens. And then we have our spring greens, apple green, sap green, into our yellow chartreuse, and our lime peel. This one here is one of my mom's favorite, is lime peel. Moss green, kelp green, and marine green. Another one that she goes through a lot of, I'm trying to find it, I think is sap green or Keller green, one or the other. And then we go into our beige browns, into our clay colors and our browns, into our brick colors, and then into our dark browns. And of course, the infin, uh, the infamous grays, of course, starting with your 10% French gray, 20. So we have our French grays all the way up to 90%, our cool grays all the way up to 90%, and our warm grays all the way up to 90%. And then we go into our slate, bronze, silver, gold, black, white, and then these three neons. And the neons aren't too bad. I haven't used them a whole lot, so that is our swatch sheet. And like I said, I don't use my Prismas nearly enough. I I had a hate on for them for a long time because I couldn't color with them. One of the main problems that I was having with Prismacolor pencils is I would put down a layer of color, think I was done, and come back the next day and find that that layer of color just didn't look right. And I don't know if it was the type of paper I was using or what, but it just seemed that it would, even if I blended it, the white spot would come up or it would crack. It just looked like it was colored with crayons and it bugged me. I'm slowly learning how to use them and I am getting better, but still not one of my absolute go-to colored pencils. And it's not anything to do with the pencils themselves. They are a wax-based pencil, where what I mean by wax-based is that their binder is more wax than oil, where with an oil-based, the binder is more oil than wax. So I'm used to using oil-based pencils, so it's a bit of a learning curve for me to use a wax-based pencil. Where most people start off with a wax-based pencil, I pretty much started off with paint and then went to Crayola, which I didn't like very much. So I went from Crayola to Sharpierer and Brutfuner, which are both oil-based pencils. So it's taken me a little bit of time to figure out how to work work the colors properly. And I've got slate gray in the wrong spot. Slate gray should be over here. About I've got a bunch of them in the wrong spot. I'm going to have to go through and rearrange. I must have been half asleep when I was putting things away. Not a big deal. So I will be coloring with these, of course. I've got this wonderful little sheet that I've been working on. So I've got one left here on this sheet, and then we're going to have to print off a new one. So we will be coloring the wonderful little flowers with the Prismas. So we need some greens. So let's grab this one, which is grass green. And yeah, I don't want pale sage. Spring green. And then we need a dark one. So let's grab Prussian green. So there are our greens for the leaves. And then we're going to take a couple of blues. So we want this one here, China blue, and I don't want to go that light. This one here, muted turquoise is a good one. I think those will go nicely together. Now we're only going to do 2 color combinations because of the type of flower it is and the fact that they're so small. So we're also going to use some yellows. So we're going to go with, I don't really want sand. Let's see this one. This one here. Let's go a little brighter. So we're going to go with canary yellow, and then we're going to go with orange, and I think we're going to go with a bit of Scarlet Lake as well. And then we're going to go with some pinks. So we're going to use magenta and what's this one? Pale rose or pink rose. I think those two will go nicely together for the pinks. So I'm going to switch it over to the close-up camera. I'm going to close this up and get it out of the way so that I'm not knocking it off the desk. And of course Prisma has their own blender pencil, which works really, really well with their pencils. So we will be using that as well. Alright, so we're going to use a couple of different pencils that I haven't used yet. Now I'm going to show you on this one here. I have not used this pencil yet beyond swatching, and it is cracked. So this one might have some difficulties sharpening. We will soon find out. That's one of the problems that I've been having with them, is their quality is not as good as it should be for an artist grade pencil. So after sharpening it, as you can see, that crack does go all the way down. So I might have some issues with this pencil, but we will see. It might just be the joint is showing a little bit more than it should be. So this one here is also one that I have not sharpened, and there's no joint cracks, so it should be fine. These are a very soft pencil, so a lot of times you need your duster brush to make sure that you don't rub your hand across it, because you will smudge that color. Alright, so we're going to start off with this one here, which I'm going to do in pink. I'm just going to give this magenta a little bit of a sharpen because it is a small area and I want to be able to get into those small areas. So I'm just going to put this magenta down here at the base, right at the start of the flower where it goes into the center. The great thing about Prismas that I really actually like about them is that they do blend together so nicely. And as soon as you learn how to use them, it does produce beautiful things. It's just a learning curve. And because the first time I tried them, I hadn't used a lot of wax-based products, and I just got really angry with trying to use them. So we've got the magenta down. Now we're going to go in with the pink rose, and this is a very pale color. So what I'm doing is I'm going right over top of the magenta and just dragging that color in to the pale rose color. This is quite a gray rose, gray pink, very antique pink looking. Now if you do this and you end up covering too much of your darker color or muting it too much, of course you can go back in and re-add some of that darker color. The one thing I did learn about Prismas is when you do go dark to light, you are going to have that light take over some of your dark, which isn't a problem to me. I just go back in and re-establish the dark. I just don't like having a harsh line. So when you go back in to establish your dark, just feather that dark out into the light a little bit, and it will get rid of any harsh lines. And I use a light touch when I'm feathering it out. The one thing about these pencils is they are really, really soft, so if you use a heavy hand, you will find that you get better results with these pencils with a little bit heavier of a hand, because then you can smush them better. And that's exactly the word that most people use, is they smush, because that's what they do. I'm just going to put some yellow in here before I go on to the next flower. And I'm going to grab a little bit of red as well. And as you can see, I'm just smushing it together so that it combines. And then we'll blend it in with the lighter color, like that. And I'm going to fix that because for some reason my camera is picking up colors weird again. Let's turn that down a little bit. I don't know. Sometimes it just goes all wonky weird. It's very strange. But if I turn the saturation down too far, it doesn't show the colors accurately, which is even weirder. Some colors it picks up no problems. Other colors it just says, nope, we're just not going to do that. See, it's picking things up pink for some reason, like the paper, which is white. I don't know. Don't know. It's driving me crazy. Yep, don't know. We will work with it. Alright, so we're going to work with that. And we'll see how it does with the oranges and the yellows. And it's the weirdest thing too, is because I'll check the camera before I even start, and it looks perfectly fine. I adjust it so it's absolutely perfect. Let's see up here. And then, it changes. So it's just the weirdest thing. I think that's a little better. Alright, so that's what we're going to work with there. It is just the weirdest thing. Alright, So we've got the orange, and we're going to fill in this area here with the orange. And I'm just filling in the whole area. And like I said, with the Prismas, I have found that you can get a lot of color on the page, a lot of pigment on the page very quickly. You can also get a lot of wax on the page very quickly. I don't have a lot of issues with wax bloom. I think it's just because I don't use them very often, and I have a tendency to burnish everything, so I put a lot of color down. So now I'm just dragging this orange up into the other petals a little bit so that I have something to blend that yellow into. Now we're going to take some red. I'm going to put that down all the way around the edge. Like that. And then we're going to take this yellow and we're just going to blend it all together. And like I said, they do smoosh together really nicely. So you can get a really good blend with them. Make sure I go all the way to the edges. And then we'll cover the inside here. And we'll take a little bit of the orange, I think. For those little spots. And a little bit of red for a few. Alright, so there's our orange flower, orange and yellow. And then this one here we're going to do with the blues. So we're going to start off, I'm going to show you going from light to dark this time, where this one we went from dark to light. And this one here we went from dark to light. So this one we're going to go from light to dark. So when you're going from light to dark, you just fill in the whole area that you want to be light. You can go down into the dark area because you're going to be covering that up with the dark, so it's not a big deal. Now I'm just putting down a light layer. I will come back through afterwards and blend it together with this lighter pencil. Now this is a very, very small flower, so it's not going to show it doesn't require a heavy amount of color. If it was a larger petal, a larger flower, I probably would be using a third color on it just to put in the highlights and shadows and everything. but because it's such a small space, don't really need to do that. What I'm doing is I'm going in heavy at the very, very base and just feathering it out into that light color. Putting it down fairly heavy, putting a heavier hand on it, medium heavy hand on it at the base, and just lightening my position on the paper with the pencil as I move up, like that. Just going to go around the base one more time, make sure that I've got it nice and dark. And then you can take your light pencil and just on top of where you feathered it, go over it and blend that into the light. Now if I was to go over the entire area that I just covered with that dark color, the light blue would take that over too much and I'd have to reestablish that dark color. I just picked a bunch of gray colors today, didn't I? I got a gray pink there, and this is a very gray blue. I think I'm feeling a bit gray today. That or else I want it to be gray today. Just going in and just making sure that I've got that dark enough. And looking like it's blue. Alright, now we're going to take our yellow. And we're going to do the center. And we're going to take some red. And do that little area there. Now we've got the leaves to do. So we're going to go over them with this lighter color because they're small. And I want to be able to try to get a 3 color combination into them. I don't know if I will be able to. And then we're going to take the Prussian green and just go right from the flower out just a little bit to give that shadow. And then we're going to take the grass green and we're just going to go around the edges here, leaving that center area a little bit lighter. This would have worked a lot better if I had sharpened the pencil. And then we're going to just take our blender pencil here, start where the light is, and work our way into the dark. I'm just trying to eliminate that hard edge, and because it's such a small area, I can't really do it with the pencil itself. Now I'm just going to take this light pencil and just reestablish that light area there, like that. And of course now it's not picking up greens again. I'm telling you, this camera's really ticking me off. Now once again, same way, just going to add the green. This is spring green, which is a nice light green color. And just little circles filling in the whole area. Of course, you can do it any way you want to do. You don't have to do little circles if you don't want to. Then I've got the dark going in, filling in between the petals of the flower and going around the flower petals just to give it that shadow. And going up the vein of the flower or the leaf and going next to the leaf here for this shadow. Now I'm going to sharpen this one. This is the grass green. The other one that I just went around the petals with was Prussian green. And this is grass green. And we're just going to go around the tips and edges. Could have sharpened it a little bit more, I think. The points don't stay very long on these pencils. So if you get a sharp point and you want to maintain that sharp point, try to remember to turn your pencil. It will keep your points a little bit sharper. We're just going to sharpen up the spring green here. And I'm just going to gently, because these are larger, I can gently blend that grass green in. Without having to use the blending pencil. In larger areas you can definitely do that. Oh, broke the tip. You can definitely do that. Just try to remember not to break your tips. These do break very, very easily, so if you are a heavy-handed person, be careful with your tips because you will break them. But as you can see, they do blend together really, really nicely and fill in that gap really well. Alright, so now this one here, because it's so small, we will be using a blending pencil for it. Once again, because of the factor that it is much smaller than I'm able to get these pencils sharpened to. And then just up there, just going around the edges here where you're going to see that shadow. And I think I just used the wrong pencil for that, so I'm just going to go over it, darken it up a little bit. And this one here, I'm just going to use the grass green in the very tips, because like I said, they are very small leaves. Highlight that area in the center. And then we'll take the blending pencil and blend it all together. Like that. And there we have that. So now I'm just going to grab some light blue. I think this one. Nope, that's... I think I'll grab the right kind of light blue. I was just grabbing colors out of another set that is not Prisma. So, yeah. Alright, so this one here, which is Caribbean Sea, is a nice light purpley kind of blue. So I'm just going to put in a layer of it. Now I'm just barely touching the page, just making sure that I get some color down. Because I'm going to be adding the shadows, and then I'll come back through and put down more color to fill in the white spot, because I don't like a white spot. I know I need to embrace the white spot, but I just don't. Some pictures I find that white spot is very helpful. But there are some days that the white spot drives me cray. And I do know that it's just something that I get bugged about, but I'm quite sure there's other people that get bugged by it, but on my own pictures I get really bugged by it. So I'm just going in with the China blue. Adding those shadowy areas. Which I don't really necessarily need to do, but I, for some reason, envision this laying on a table somewhere. Not going to get that kind of shadow again in the skyline, but you might get a gray shade. But since the blue is a kind of gray blue, then I guess it would be a darker blue. And once I go over it with the other blue, it's going to not be as dark, but and I'm using a medium pressure here. Not a heavy pressure, just a medium pressure, just to cut through that lower layer a little bit and get a good depth of color, because I want it to be nice and dark. Feathering it out a little bit so that when I put down some more of the light blue, I can feather it into and blend into the darker blue. Looks really pretty around that pink flower though. And you guys can barely see it. I'll switch it over to the other camera later, before I sign off and show you exactly what it looks like. So I'm using a little bit heavier of a hand here and smudging those or smushing those colors together. And getting some of that white spot covered up here. Smush, smush, smush. Smush, smush, smush. That one had a weird little bit of something in it. Now we're going to take this one here, which is cloud blue, and we're just going to go through and add that cloud blue to lighten things up in some areas. Because the other blue is really close to the dark blue color here. And I'm pressing hard enough where the cloud blue takes over a little bit. And just lightens that blue up. Like that. Now we're going to take our blender pencil, make sure that it's clean. There we go. Now the one thing that I know, well, one of the reasons why I'm not fond of the Prisma blender pencil is because it lifts up a lot of the pigment, which bugs me. I do find that I am able to disperse it and put it down in other places, so that helps. I think if it wasn't for that, I probably would never use a Prisma blender, even on Prismas. Definitely not my favorite blender, but it works really well on Prismas. So. And because it's Prisma, that's why we're using it. Because today's collection is Prisma. And I have quite a few things Prisma. I've got blenders, and I've got pencils, and I've got erasers, and so I've got quite a few things of Prisma. I just don't use them very much. Alright, so there is our a set of flowers done with the Prisma Premier colored pencils. Let's switch you on over to the main here. And we're going to move that in a little bit so you can actually see it a little bit better. I know, all this moving around. Probably getting y'all seasick. Okay, so as you can see, it is blue, it's not gray. Um, and, the colors do blend together very, very nicely. You can still see the definition of the dark blue around the flowers, but you can also see the definition of the light blue on top of the medium blue, which is really cool. They do really, really nicely. I can't can't say they're horrible pencils because they're not. They do take a little bit to get used to if you're not used to using a really soft pencil. Other than that, once you get used to them, you can create absolutely gorgeous pictures with them. You know, skin tones and everything else come out really, really nicely. You know, this is on Tantone paper, and I was able to get those really bright pinks and yellows and blues, and even her skin tones are quite bright. Another thing that a lot of people use the most of the Prismacolor colored pencils is the white. And this is why, because it actually shows bright white. Even on white paper, if I was to take the white and go on there, where's my white? Oh, got so much going on over here. Now I have had difficulties with my white, so I have it in an extender. But if I was to take this white and say go in here into this dark area, you can see the white. Well, not on that camera. So let's switch over to this one. Okay, so let's find something that has a good dark. Okay, so the mushroom here is a good dark mushroom. So if I was to put this down, it's a nice white. You can see that white. Same with up here. If I put this down here, I can get a good level of white. You can definitely see it. Where, say, this one here, which is the Brute Funer, it's still white, but it's not as white as this one here. So let's put it next to each other. Actually, the Brute Funer doesn't do too badly. So let's do it here on the red. Ah! But as you can see, I'm having to press really hard to get that line. Where with the Prisma, I don't have to press as hard, and I still get a good amount of white. There are some pencils that it just doesn't work very well on, but a lot of people use the Prisma white for highlights. They use it for blending, you know, all sorts of things. So as you can probably see there on that tree, these are on marker, so King Art pens and markers. And it does show up really, really well. And even after rubbing, it doesn't come off. It will lessen, of course, but it doesn't disappear. It doesn't absorb into your color, where with this one here, it's not as bright white, and I had to press harder, and it blends into the color quite a bit. So even when I blend it out, there's still a very prominent white line there, where with this one here, I can pretty much blend the whole thing out and erase it or get rid of most of it just with the blending pencil. So that is that. Once again, like I said, not my absolute favorite pencil. Do they have a place in my collection? Absolutely. Um, do I use them? Absolutely. I definitely do. Will I use them more? Possibly. The more I learn about them, the more I learn how to use them, the better I get with them. Um, do I prefer my oil-based pencils to the Prismacolors, like for example the Faber-Castells? Absolutely. If I had to choose between a Faber-Castell and a Prismacolor pencil, I would choose the Faber-Castell. Unless it was the white, and then I'd choose the Prisma. But yes, I would use my Faber-Castells more often than I would use my Prismas. And it's only because it's a personal preference. It's something that I personally enjoy using and can get the results that I want from them. Um, like I said, with this one here, I definitely got the results I wanted from it, and I'm very pleased with the way that they functioned. And because I don't use them enough, I was really glad I used them for this picture. They even blended quite well here for the butterflies. All right, so that is our look at Prismacolor colored pencils. They're the Prismacolor Premier, and the 150 set is for sale on Amazon for $120 currently. Um, and I will, of course, leave a link in the description below. Keep an eye on them. They do go below $60. So look at all the different sites. Look at all the, whether it be Amazon, Jerry's, Artorama, Blix, Walmart. Look at all of those sites, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, all of those. And keep an eye on those prices because they do come down. And you can get a good set for really, really competitive prices. Like I said, the Prismacolors have, I think, diminished in quality since they switched their manufacturing to Mexico. And I do have some issues with breakage. I have found that the crank sharpeners sharpen them with way less breakage than the handheld sharpeners. The electric sharpeners would probably be the same way less breakage with them. So and still get that good point. I like a really really good narrow point, hard point where it goes into a very thin area. A lot of people that use Prismas do prefer the way that they come, and that's that little tiny point like that. And you can definitely use that. And I know a lot of people do. I personally like them to be a really nice sharp point, so I end up sharpening them with things such as this or the Prisma sharpener with the longer area. I have used this one here and I do not get good results with it. I get better results with this with the cheaper pencils than with the Prisma pencils. But as you can see, it's got two spots, one for a short sharpen and one for a longer sharpen. And this is the one I always use. And I think I have something broken off in there already. But you can use the shorter sharpen area. Here, let's see if I can get this to do it without breaking. To get that sharp small point, and you don't waste or you don't use up as much of your pencil sharpening when you do it this way. I just find that you have to sharpen it more often. But you do get a fairly decent point. It's just a lot smaller, and I find that with the way I color, I'm having to sharpen that all the time. So So you can definitely get the Prismacolor Premier, Prismacolor pencil sharpener to sharpen them if that's something that you're able to do it with a hand sharpen. If you prefer the little tiny points like this, um, there are settings on the doll as well as on the deli where you can get a short point like this. But if you're good with pencil sharpeners and prefer a hand sharpener, the Prisma Premier is a really good sharpener. It does come with screws for the blades, so those blades can be replaced. Okay, guys, other than that, I want to say thank you all very much for joining me. I hope you have enjoyed the video on Prisma Premier in my collection. Of course, tomorrow is Tips and Tricks Tuesday, and I have had a couple of requests, so I am going to be teaching some differences between layering and blending. All right, guys, until then, I'd like to say, of course, remember to relax, color, and stay safe. I hope you all have a fantastic day and a wonderful week if I don't see you throughout the week. Of course, if you want to join the memberships, just hit that join button and it will tell you all about the memberships and how much they cost. And if you want to join over on the Facebook group, make sure that you fill out the application form and we'll get you in there right away. All right, guys, always have a fantastic day. Until next time, bye bye for now.